Hi there, I'm Annalise. I built a $13 million business, quietly on my own, thinking maybe one day my family would just be proud. Instead, at Thanksgiving dinner, my sister exposed it to the whole room. And that was just the beginning. They didn't just want congratulations, they wanted access, control, money. Then came the fake job requests, credit card fraud, even a family meeting to guilt trip me into funding my sister's dream business. But the worst part? They planned it all, weeks before I even walked through that door. What happens when your success becomes a target and the people aiming are your own family? The air in Coeur d'Alene always smelled like pine and frozen lake water, especially in late November. The familiar crunch of gravel under my boots should have made me feel something, nostalgia maybe, but it didn't. Not anymore. The town hadn't changed, but I had. And now even my shadow felt out of place. When I stepped up to my mother's porch that morning, no one opened the door. I stood there for a moment, hand half raised, before turning the knob and letting myself in. The scent of stuffing and reheated gravy lingered in the air. Briley's boyfriend Milo lounged on the living room couch with his feet up, glued to a football game. He barely looked up. "Hey," he muttered, not taking his eyes off the screen. "They're in the kitchen." No hug, no welcome home, just that. I set my bag down, adjusted the scarf around my neck, and walked into a house I used to call mine. But even the floorboards didn't creak the same. Mom stood at the counter stirring cranberry sauce, humming something off-key. Briley was flipping through a binder of color palettes, likely another business idea she wouldn't follow through with. Dad was nowhere in sight. I guessed he'd retreated to the garage, his sanctuary during every holiday. "Oh, you're here," Mom said without turning. "We didn't expect you till later." I glanced at the clock. "It's noon." She shrugged, too busy arranging deviled eggs to make eye contact. I noticed a stack of photo prints on the table, balloons, banners, cake, and paused. Briley caught my look and smiled proudly. "Oh, those. That was last weekend. My graduation party." "Graduation party?" I blinked. "You graduated?" "Interior design certificate. It's online, but still counts," she said with a toss of her hair. "The whole family came. Even Aunt Diane drove in from Spokane. It was a blast." I turned to Mom. "No one told me." She wiped her hands on a towel and said, "We figured you were busy with whatever you do, traveling, working with those antique people. We didn't want to bother you." I swallowed back the sour taste creeping up my throat. "Bother me?" Briley added, "I posted all the pics, didn't you see? Maybe you're not following my new account." Maybe I wasn't. Or maybe I stopped checking years ago when it became clear that family gatherings happened with or without me. Dinner was as silent as a church during confession. The table was full, cousins, in-laws, even a neighbor or two, but no one asked me about my work, my life, or anything beyond the obligatory, "How's the weather in Milwaukee?" Then it happened. Uncle Rich raised his glass and said, "To Annalise, always so composed, never a hair out of place, always got it together." I smiled politely, ready to down my wine and move on, but Briley's eyes brimmed with tears. "You don't know what it's like," she said, voice cracking, "to fail over and over again while your sister just wins at everything." Forks froze midair. Conversations died. The room tilted. Briley covered her face and sobbed. "I've tried, I really have, but nobody sees how hard it is for me to just keep up." Mom rushed to her side. "Oh, sweetheart, you're doing your best." Dad had reappeared just in time to frown in my direction. The implication was clear. I had caused this. My success was an attack. My composure, a weapon. Later I slipped away upstairs, desperate for a few minutes of silence. My old room still smelled faintly of peppermint and dust. The walls were bare now, stripped of the posters and awards that once lined them. I sat on the edge of the bed and pulled out my laptop to check a few emails. It was automatic, mechanical, something to remind me who I really was outside this house. A notification popped up from Instagram. Briley had posted a photo of herself, smiling, radiant, and around her neck was the Edwardian necklace I'd spent months sourcing and customizing for our mother's 60th, a rare, pale sapphire set in antique gold. The caption read, "Mom said I've always deserved the beautiful things in life." I stared at the screen, the blood draining from my face. That necklace had been wrapped in tissue paper, tied with a note that said, "For everything you sacrificed, Mom." She'd barely glanced at it the day I gave it to her. Now it sparkled on Briley's throat like it had always belonged there. Downstairs I heard them laughing. Someone turned up the music. The sound muffled, but that didn't dull its sting. I closed the laptop, set it aside, and leaned back against the headboard. The room felt smaller than I remembered, or maybe I'd just grown past it. I thought of the time I won first place at the state science fair in 7th grade, came home holding the trophy like it was gold. Mom had glanced at it, said, "That's nice," then turned to help Briley tie her shoelaces. Invisible. That was always my role in this house, the one who didn't need attention, the one who had it all together. I didn't cry. That part of me shut down a long time ago. Instead, I logged into my company's client portal and approved an appraisal report for a collection being prepped for a Manhattan exhibit. My name, Annalise Hayes, flashed in the digital signature. It grounded me. A second notification came in, an email. The sender, Briley. Subject, "Can you take a quick look at my resume? I need it for this job I'm applying to." Right beneath it, another. From Dad. Subject, "We need to talk. About family." I didn't answer either email. Just shut the laptop, left it on the nightstand, and lay back on the bed. The house was still, except for the TV downstairs humming with some holiday rerun. Laughter floated up through the floorboards. My door was closed, but I could still feel the house pressing in. Hours passed, like water slipping down glass. I must have dozed off in my jeans because I woke to my phone buzzing just after midnight. Dad. I stared at the screen, debating. But habit wins over reason sometimes, and a small part of me still wanted to hear something kind, so I picked up. "You're awake," he said. "Barely." "No. How are you? No happy Thanksgiving." He got to the point. "Your sister's struggling. You know that, don't you?" I stayed quiet. "She's trying. Not everyone's wired like you. You've got a head for numbers. Some people don't get handed that." "Handed?" He kept going. "Just don't let your success turn you cold. That's not what family's about. You're not better than us because your life looks nice on paper." My jaw clenched. "I never said I was." "You didn't have to." Then came the dagger. "You've changed, Annalise." Click. I lay there afterward, heart pounding louder than the wind tapping the window. Not angry, just scraped raw, like someone rubbed sandpaper over the softest parts of me, then blamed me for bleeding. I didn't sleep much after that. By morning, I was already up, brushing my teeth with a dusty travel kit. I tossed my hair in a bun, skipped makeup, and opened the laptop again, more reflex than intention. Briley's email was still there. Subject, "Resume help message. Hey, can you take a look before I send it to this studio in Spokane? Thanks." 3. Attachment. Briley final maybe it .docs. I clicked. It was a mess. Typos. Half-finished bullet points. One line read, "Did interior design stuff with mood boards." Another said, "Event planning? Not sure. Ask Mom." Then I saw it. She claimed she worked at Sugar Pines Bakery. That was my old job at 13. Even used my boss's name. It wasn't a real request. It was bait. A guilt trap. I didn't respond. Just saved the file in a folder labeled "Emotional Leverage Archived" and closed the laptop again. Downstairs I poured lukewarm tea. Mom and Briley had gone to get pies. Store-bought, apparently. From the den, I overheard Aunt Diane on the phone. "Well, Wanda says Annalise is too into her career to find a decent man. You know how these women get. Independent, controlling. I mean, she's pushing 35. Laughter followed. I stood still, mug in hand. Mom walked in, holding a grocery receipt. She noticed my face but didn't flinch. "I told her you wouldn't mind," she said casually. "Just wanted them to understand your lifestyle. Not everyone gets your choices." "My choices?" She shrugged. "You know, work first. It's your path, but people talk." I set the mug down, untouched. No fire in me. Just that weight again. Not shame, just clarity. They weren't embarrassed by me. They were embarrassed for me. Back in my room, I sat on the floor, surrounded by the past. Old trophies, crayon cards Briley made when we were kids. This house had always chosen her, quietly but clearly. So, why did I come back? I told myself it was Thanksgiving. that I owed them. But deep down, I'd hoped, foolishly, that maybe this year would be different, that I wouldn't feel like an outsider in my own family. I checked the Spokane bus schedule. There was a 4:45 p.m. departure the next day. I hovered over the ticket button, but I didn't click. Not because I had hope, but because I was done running. I needed to see this through. Not for closure, just for truth. I wanted to see who they really were when I stopped making it easy to ignore me. Later that evening, while scrolling notifications, I got a ping from Venmo. Caitlin, $150, asterisk. Just a lil help, queen. You got it. Asterisk, I blinked. Then a message popped up. Your mom said you'd help. I stared at Caitlin's Venmo request for 5 full minutes, hoping it might disappear. It didn't. $150. Just a lil help, queen. You got it. Like we were close. Like she hadn't ghosted every birthday message for the past 5 years. And now she wanted money. For what exactly? I didn't respond. Didn't decline either. Just left it there like a splinter I wasn't ready to dig out. Morning crawled in behind the blinds, cold and gray. That Idaho kind of morning where caffeine feels medicinal. I could hear dishes downstairs, someone humming, probably mom. I grabbed my phone, 4 new emails, none of them work. The first was from a cousin in Montana I hadn't seen since Briley's 6th grade recital. Hey cuz, starting a candle brand. Long story LOL. Aunt Wanda said you might want to invest? Even like $2K? The next was from my uncle's stepson, the same guy who once called me emotionally constipated at a barbecue. Yo, you're the rich one, right? Need like $300 to finish building my gaming setup. Help a brother out? My hands didn't shake from rage, just disbelief. No one was even pretending anymore. At some point, someone had drawn a $sign on my forehead, and I hadn't seen it happen. I splashed cold water on my face in the bathroom. The mirror reflected tired eyes. But what hit me harder was the restraint staring back. Years of swallowing it all down. In the hallway, I passed Briley. Leggings, oversized college hoodie she never earned. Her phone screen lit up, and I caught a glimpse. A photo of my office. She'd visited 2 summers ago. I'd regretted it since. By the time I checked Instagram, the post was already live. At @Bri_babe. Some people are just born into things, huh? #blessed #aesthetic goals. There it was. My desk, my cataloged antique brooches, my bookshelf. She knew the angle, the light. And the comments? Worse. Must be nice having a rich sister. She's probably never struggled. Where do I apply to be adopted? I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I just walked, quietly, into the living room where she was scrolling next to the dog, giggling. Why are you posting pictures of my office? She blinked. What? You know what? The photo, the caption, the comments. Why? She shrugged. It's just a post. Chill. People like aspirational stuff. You always liked attention. There's a difference between being seen and being used. Before she could answer, Mom stepped in from the kitchen, drying her hands. Oh, Anne, maybe it's her way of showing love. This is how people connect now. Everything's shared. I looked at her. Not everything. I turned and walked away. No drama, just silence. That kind of calm always irritated them more. Upstairs, I opened my laptop. I needed something solid. Emails, spreadsheets, anything real. Instead, a fraud alert. New credit card opened in my name. Chase Sapphire preferred. I froze. I hadn't opened anything new. I logged in. My info was all there, address, SSN, full name. Transactions going back 6 weeks. Sephora, Apple, Pottery Barn, a boutique in Spokane. Every city Briley had tagged on social. I called the bank. The agent was polite, then puzzled. Ma'am, the account wasn't fraudulently created. It was opened in your name, and someone was added as an authorized user. Application came from an IP address in Idaho. It wasn't identity theft. It was identity hijacking. I ended the call and just sat there. Let the quiet land like ash around me. This wasn't sibling rivalry. It wasn't petty family drama. It was crossing a line. They'd stepped into my life with muddy shoes and expected gratitude for the footprints. And still, I hadn't left. Then came the voicemail. Grandma Dolores. Her voice soft and crackly. Annalise, Your mother's been calling me every day. She says, we need to talk. I didn't call Grandma back right away. I needed a minute to breathe, to process, to steady the noise building in my head. The house was still, save for the clatter of Briley reheating leftovers downstairs. I could smell turkey and burnt marshmallows, but nothing felt warm. Mid-morning rolled in gray and quiet, draping Coeur d'Alene in a kind of soft gloom. The sky held its breath. I opened the window slightly, letting in the bite of cold air, just enough to remind myself I was still real. A knock came at the door, gentle, almost apologetic. It creaked open before I answered. Dolores. She stepped inside, holding a ceramic container with both hands. Soup, the kind she always brought when something unspoken was festering. Her eyes scanned the room quickly before settling on me. You look tired, she said, her voice gentle but worn. I nodded. Did you drive all the way from Sandpoint this morning? She placed the container on the desk beside me. Your mom's been calling, every night this week. She paused. She wants me to talk to you. She said Briley needs a hand, something about her future depending on it. I leaned against the edge of the bed, my arms crossed. And you? Dolores shook her head slowly. I didn't come to convince you, sweetheart. I just needed to see you with my own eyes, see how you were holding up. She sat beside me, her sigh barely audible. That quiet kind of love, the kind that never asks for attention but is always there when the storm hits. She said you're turning your back on family, she added after a pause. But I told her, Annalise doesn't walk away without a reason. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. Later that morning, around what would have been brunch if this house believed in shared meals, Mom found me in the sunroom. She was holding a navy blue folder, her lips pursed in what she probably thought was a neutral expression. Can I sit? She asked. I didn't answer. She sat anyway. I know things have been tense, but I think you'll appreciate this. It's not a handout, Annalise. It's an opportunity. She handed me the folder, flipping it open for me like a hostess presenting dessert menus. Inside were a few sheets printed on pastel pink paper. The title in loopy cursive, Briley Rose Interiors, A Vision for Elevated Living. There were mood boards of boho-themed studio apartments and blurry Pinterest quotes like, Your space reflects your soul. No cost structure, no vendor list, just dreams and fonts. She has talent, Mom said, voice tightening. She just needs someone to believe in her. And really, what's $10,000 to you? I closed the folder gently and set it back on the table between us. I'm not investing in this. Her brows shot up. But you haven't even read it. I did. And I'm not saying no because I doubt Briley. I'm saying no because I know what this really is. She narrowed her eyes. What's that supposed to mean? It means you never believed in me. Not when I begged for piano lessons. Not when I got into Northwestern. Not even when my company hit its first million. My voice didn't rise. It dropped lower, quieter, until it stung sharper. You don't see me. You only see what I can provide. Wanda stood up quickly, the chair scraping behind her. That's unfair, Annalise. You're making me out to be some kind of villain. I've done everything I could for both of you. Cruel, I said, is expecting someone to carry everyone else and still be invisible. She left without another word. Dolores stayed behind. We ended up in her guest room, where she kept her jewelry, an antique walnut chest filled with velvet-lined drawers. She opened the second one carefully, fingertips trembling as she reached for a small compartment in the back. It was empty. Something's not right, she murmured. The swan brooch, the one you gave me after your first auction deal. It's gone. She turned to me, eyes heavy. I didn't misplace it. That piece was special. I scanned the rest of the drawer. In its place was a cheap knockoff, a plastic setting where gold should have been, glass instead of stone. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. That evening, I found Briley in the driveway, putting boxes into her car. I approached without pretense. Where's Grandma's brooch? She blinked, caught off guard. What? The heirloom, the one I gave her, the one she just discovered was missing. She hesitated. It's not a big deal. I needed a deposit for the new place. It's just a trinket. My stomach turned. That wasn't yours to take. You wouldn't even notice if she hadn't said anything. That's not the point. She rolled her eyes. God, you act like you're the only one who's ever struggled. No, I said. I act like the only one who's ever had to clean up after everyone else. I turned and walked away. Back in my room, I opened my laptop and began drafting an email to Raymond, my attorney. Subject: I may need formal boundaries. I didn't send it, not yet. That night, as I was closing tabs and preparing to finally rest, a new message popped into my inbox. The sender: harper.accountingadvisor@gmail.com. Subject line: Tax-wise, you may benefit from investing in family. The body was short and full of strategic wording. Assets can become liabilities if not used for generational support. Consider reallocating some liquid holdings into your sister's venture to build equity and emotional legacy. The signature read, Harper James, Certified Wealth Consultant. But I recognized the writing style. It was my mother's voice, word for word. I sat still for a long time, staring at the email, not blinking, not breathing. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I checked the metadata. A habit from early days in appraisal work, before my team grew big enough to delegate the technical stuff. Old instincts kicked in fast. I downloaded the message, opened the source file, scanned the headers. The email was sent from an IP tied to Spectrum Cable Services, registered right here in Coeur d'Alene. The Harper James consultant wasn't in New York, or anywhere near Wall Street. They were in this house, probably just a few rooms away, watching Netflix and eating pie. I pinched the bridge of my nose and let the weight settle in. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was strategy. And Mom was behind it. An hour passed. Maybe more. The house was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and Briley's occasional laugh upstairs as she scrolled her phone. I went back to my inbox, still hoping that maybe, just maybe, that message was the worst of it. It wasn't. A notification popped up from my credit monitoring service. New account activity detected. My stomach clenched. I clicked. A student loan. Opened 3 weeks ago, co-signed by me. I blinked, checked again. The co-signer name was correct. Social security number matched mine. Annalise Hayes. The borrower? Briley Wanda Hayes? No one asked me. No one told me. They just used me. I dialed the loan provider. A chirpy representative came on the line and asked for verification. After passing their identity check, I asked directly, "Who submitted the application?" There was a pause on the other end. "The primary applicant listed the co-signer as a parent," the rep replied. "But the co-signer's details, well, they came from a different email, matching your records." I asked for the source. She paused again. "It was entered manually over the phone," she said. "We don't record those calls publicly, but it originated from an Idaho-based landline." That line, I knew, belonged to my mother. I ended the call. No yelling, no crying. I just stared at the screen. I wasn't angry the way people expect you to be. Not in a breaking plates, slam the door kind of way. I was still, dead still. And in that stillness, I started collecting evidence. I pulled up a blank document and began typing notes. Timestamps, email headers, phone call summaries. I screenshotted everything. Opened a secure folder, labeled it Boundary Violation Family. I wasn't done. A ping broke the quiet. A voice note. From Maya. "Hey girl. Bit random, but your mom reached out last week. Found me through the alumni group. Said she wanted to send you something sentimental and needed your address. I didn't give it, obviously, but it was weird. Just a heads up." I messaged back. "Thanks. She's not sending me anything. She's collecting leverage." A few minutes later, another text arrived. From Jonah, an old friend from Northwestern. "Your mom's asking about your office lease location? Said she might drop by with a gift? Seemed off." She wasn't sending gifts. She was building a profile, one piece at a time. Addresses, loans, emails, investments. In a weird way, it felt like a hostile takeover. But I wasn't a corporation. I was their daughter. Back in my room, I paced slowly, each step careful, calculated. At my desk, I picked up the phone and dialed Raymond. He answered on the second ring. "Annalise? I need to formalize some protections," I said. "You're ready for the cease and desist phase?" He asked gently. "Not just that," I replied. "I want a full financial boundary agreement drafted. Identity protection, legal consequences if breached." "I'll start tonight," he said. After the call, I printed out the email, highlighted the signature, scribbled "Mom" in the corner, underlined twice. It was a childish move, but it made the truth tangible. I printed the loan confirmation, flagged the confirmation number, attached the rep's name and timestamp. Then I hit record on my voice memo app. "This is Annalise Hayes," I began. "This recording serves as a verbal confirmation that I did not authorize the use of my Social Security number for any student loan in the name of Briley Hayes." When I finished the memo, I saved it to 3 separate drives: cloud, external, and private email. As I sat back, the weight of it all settled into my spine, not as pain, but posture. I was no longer shrinking. I opened a new email to Raymond Carter, ESQ, subject, cease or be cut off. I typed 3 lines beneath it. "I'm no longer issuing verbal warnings. This is your cue to act. If they come for more, they won't get it. They'll get legal." And then I hit send. I closed my laptop, stood and stretched. My body felt different, like armor had replaced exhaustion. As I moved toward the door, I heard laughter from downstairs. Briley. Then another voice, my mother's. "So she's threatening lawyers now?" A pause. "Let her. She still needs us. She just doesn't know it yet." The next day passed slowly. The snow hadn't fallen again, but the sky had stayed heavy, sunless. By early afternoon, the air inside the house felt like something waiting to snap. Around 1 p.m., Wanda knocked lightly on my bedroom door. "Lunch is ready," she said. "Just a little something before you head out." Her tone was syrupy, the kind she used when she wanted something but didn't want to ask directly. I followed her down the hall, the soft creak of the floorboards marking every reluctant step. Everyone was already seated. Briley, Dad, 2 cousins who'd stayed over, and 1 aunt who barely looked up from her phone. The table was set like it was Thanksgiving again. Cloth napkins, candied carrots, even a pie cooling on the windowsill. Overdone. Forced. Dolores wasn't there. Wanda mentioned casually, "She's resting. Headache." I didn't believe it. I suspected Dolores couldn't bear to witness what might happen next. As I slid into the seat nearest the window, the energy around the table buzzed with awkward politeness. No one looked directly at me, but I could feel their eyes dart in my direction when they thought I wasn't paying attention. The tension snapped 5 minutes in. I got up to refill my water, excused myself, and walked back toward the kitchen. That's when I noticed something wrong. My laptop, no longer on my bed. I turned fast, heart already racing, just in time to see Briley walking into the dining room with it in her arms like it was a birthday cake. "Hey, everyone," she said with a too sweet voice. "Let's see what our quiet little sister's been hiding." She flipped it open and spun it to face the table. The screen, my last active tab, was open to my company's internal dashboard. Bank records, contracts, a pending appraisal for the Whitney Museum, my investment reports. A massive total was displayed clearly at the top. $13 million. Someone gasped. One cousin whispered, "Holy..." Wanda's face turned to stone. Dad stared like I had smacked him. Even Briley hesitated, realizing the number was larger than she expected. "You've let your family struggle," Wanda said slowly. "While you sit on this? You knew I was paying for everything. I paid for your tuition, Briley, the insurance, the plumbing last winter, but you never once asked how I did it. You just expected." Briley didn't blink. "You have no idea what it's like to need help and feel ignored." "No," I said, voice steady. "You have no idea what it's like to give and be resented for not giving more." Dad slammed his hand on the table. "You should be ashamed. Family means support." "And manipulation is what?" I asked. The room went dead quiet. Briley stood. "Fine. You want to be cold? I can be cold too." She stormed out. Less than 2 minutes later, my phone buzzed. It was a tag notification from Instagram. An old picture of us, maybe 10 years ago. Her arm looped through mine at a birthday party. Her caption read, "I held her hand through every milestone. Never thought she'd hide millions while her own family struggled to pay rent. But I guess money changes people." #family first, #heartbroken. It didn't take long. The comments rolled in. "How could she do that to you?" Some people forget where they came from. Others were more skeptical. "You sure she owes you anything? But the damage was done. I closed the app, then I stood up, walked calmly out the front door, and into the cold. The air was sharp, like clarity. On the porch, I opened my phone, typed a message to Raymond. Proceed with the cease and desist. Add Briley and Wanda. Include breach of privacy. I blocked Briley, then Mom, then Gerald. I emailed the museum's legal team, informed them to lock my account with multi-factor authentication. Activated alerts on every bank transaction. I wasn't just protecting my business now, I was protecting myself. I walked around the side of the house, hands deep in my coat pockets, and stared out over the frosted yard. I remembered playing here as a kid, chasing Briley, laughing when we fell into piles of leaves. Back then, I thought family meant you were safe. Now I knew better. I went back inside, past the dining room, silent now except for the sound of plates being cleared. In my room, I sat down and wrote one line in my journal. They've used my silence long enough. I stared at it, then added, they think silence equals permission, that kindness equals weakness. They forgot I built all of this. Alone. Later that night, I was finally starting to pack. The last pair of shoes. My laptop, now locked down with biometric login. I was placing a scarf into my carry-on when my phone rang again. Unknown number, but I answered anyway. This is Annalise. Miss Hayes, this is Dan from Chase Bank's Fraud Division. We've detected an attempt to remotely access your business account. The IP address appears to match a home network we have on record, located in Coeur d'Alene. I didn't even flinch. Lock it down, I said. By dawn, I was on the road. The car was quiet, humming softly against the wind. Snow had melted overnight, leaving damp patches across the pavement like the residue of old mistakes. I had left the house without saying goodbye. My flight from Spokane to Milwaukee was uneventful, just long enough for me to rehearse every conversation I wasn't going to have. By the time I landed, my voicemail box was full. Texts stacked like accusations, some from numbers I didn't recognize. When I reached my office, I didn't unpack. I didn't even turn on the lights. I just sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and began checking my accounts. The first message came in almost immediately. Hey, Annalise, not sure if you saw this yet, but your mom reached out to a few of us, said she's worried you're having some kind of breakdown, told us to check in. Hope you're okay. It was from Lauren, a friend I hadn't spoken to since grad school. 2 more messages followed. One even had screenshots. There it was. Wanda, messaging a journalist I once interned with at the Chicago Tribune, trying to spin a private family concern into something public. I shut the laptop. My phone buzzed again. A text from Wanda. Please, just one call. We can talk like adults. I should have deleted it. Instead, I called. The screen blinked, then connected. At first it was quiet. Then the voices began. Annalise, sweetheart, we're all here, Wanda said. We just want to understand what's going on. All? Hi, Anne, Aunt Diane chimed in. This isn't like you. Your mother's been sick with worry, Uncle Rich added. You don't just walk away from your family. That's not how you were raised. My old high school coach, of all people, spoke next. We were proud of you. What happened? It was a trap, an emotional ambush disguised as concern. I didn't walk away, I said. I backed out of a fire I didn't set. Someone scoffed. Gerald's voice. You think we're the fire? Look in the mirror, Annalise. I hung up. No goodbyes this time either. I left the office for a breath of air, settled into a booth at the cafe on 6th and Maple. The same one I'd celebrated my first consulting contract at. That felt like someone else's life now. I scrolled through my social feed. Bad idea. Briley had gone live. Again. She sat in her bedroom, the one with the lilac curtains and fairy lights. Tears ran down her cheeks in perfect cinematic streaks. A candle flickered behind her. A Taylor Swift song played softly in the background. I've tried so hard to be strong, but my sister, the one who has everything, she treats me like a burden, like I'm not even her blood. The comments poured in. You don't deserve that, girl. She sounds toxic. Cut her off. You don't need that kind of energy. Hashtags scrolled beneath the video. #family trauma, #big sister betrayal, #left behind 22,000 viewers. In less than an hour. I lowered my phone, Celeste, my assistant, sent me a message. Want me to draft a response? Something neutral but firm? No, I typed. We don't play their game, we just shut them out completely. Back at the office, I scheduled a system-wide audit, changed all passwords, enabled biometric locks for every confidential file. I even had the locks to my building replaced. It wasn't panic. It was precision. I didn't want revenge. I wanted removal. Of access, of power, of presence. That night, I sat in my home office, a mug of black coffee cooling beside me, and stared at my reflection in the dark window. They're not louder because they're right, I whispered. They're louder because they've lost control. I opened a folder labeled Legal, scanned down until I found the document Raymond had pre-drafted, Financial Boundary Agreement plus Cease and Desist Packet. I skimmed the lines. One paragraph read, any future attempts to impersonate, access, or defame the client through digital, financial, or verbal means will result in immediate legal action. I clicked Confirm on the scheduling request. We'd notarize it in the morning. That was when my phone rang again. Raymond. Annalise, he said, voice sharp, you need to see something. I sat upright. What is it? The pawn shop receipt from Briley? It wasn't just for your grandmother's brooch. What else? There were 4 additional items, 2 designer watches, a gold fountain pen, and a sapphire cufflink set, all traced back to items you reported years ago, from your personal safe. Silence. And Annalise, the timestamp on the receipt is from 2 weeks before Thanksgiving. They hadn't just ambushed me, they'd been planning it. By the time the sun cleared Milwaukee's skyline, I was already in my office, coffee untouched, blinds still drawn. The weight of the weekend sat on my chest like frost that refused to melt. Raymond arrived at 9 a.m. sharp, trenchcoat still damp from sleet. He didn't waste time with pleasantries, just handed me a manila folder thick with consequence. Fraud, identity theft, and property misuse, he said, setting it on my desk. These are no longer family grievances. These are federal. I opened it slowly. Every tab had my name. Every document trailed a fingerprint, not mine. Wanda's signature here. Briley's email login there. Even Gerald's voice message, transcribed, dated, indexed. They went after your identity, your assets, your name, Raymond added. We have everything we need to move forward, quietly or publicly. Your call. I'm not ashamed, I said, so let it be public. He nodded. Then we file today. As he stepped out to make the first call, Celeste entered, iPad in hand. I pulled the pawn shop video, she said. You're going to want to sit down for this. I didn't. I watched standing. The footage was grainy but damning. Briley, hood up, carried a zippered pouch. She spoke to the cashier, pulled out the brooch, then 3 more items, a Cartier box I'd kept locked away, a vintage family ring, and a Mont Blanc pen my mentor gifted me after closing my first museum exhibit. Timestamp? I asked. November 7th, she replied. 12 days before Thanksgiving, and, she hesitated. She had a key. I looked over. What? That pouch she used? It's the same monogrammed one you used in grad school. She probably made a copy of your drawer key years ago. I didn't respond. I just reached for my phone. 10 minutes later, every shared account, every emergency fund, every card still tied to my name was deactivated. Raymond filed the cease and desist letters. Digital, certified, tracked, Wanda, Briley, 2 cousins, no more appeals, no more guilt. By lunchtime, the bank confirmed the loan had been voided, on the grounds of stolen identity. Charges could still be pressed. And the company's servers? Fortified. We upgraded every firewall, every admin setting. No one could touch me again. Not financially, not legally. Celeste brought me a second coffee, this one hot. Oh, she added, almost casually, there's something happening online. I raised an eyebrow. Briley's original post is being reinterpreted. A former client of yours commented, I worked with Annalise. She's the real deal. None of this is her fault. More comments flooded in. Why does her family feel so entitled to her success? This feels like a setup. Even a YouTube channel I didn't recognize posted a 12-minute breakdown. Family gaslights CEO for millions? It had 20,000 views by mid-afternoon. I didn't smile, but something inside me finally exhaled. Back in my office, I stared at the skyline. 10 floors up, Milwaukee looked like it belonged to someone who had earned their place in it. They wanted my silence to be their sanctuary, I whispered. But my silence belongs to me. And now, it speaks. I turned back to my desk, opened a fresh draft for Raymond. Subject line: Public statement pending. Then came a knock at the door. It was the front desk courier. He held out a slim envelope addressed in delicate cursive. Return address, Dolores. Inside was a personal check, the amount, $4,750. The memo line: repayment for what they took. But what made my hands tremble wasn't the money. It was the note inside. In Dolores's hand. You don't owe us, love, but I hope you still find it. I read it twice, then placed it gently in the top drawer of my desk, beside a photo of me at age 11, holding up a science fair trophy no one had clapped for. This was what closure looked like. Not noise, not rage, just truth, finally speaking louder than obligation. 3 weeks passed like clouds, slow, shapeless, a little unreal. I stood by the wide window of my new home in Madison, just a block from Lake Mendota, and let the quiet fill me. No footsteps overhead, no arguing downstairs, just the hum of winter winds brushing the panes and the smell of pine from the small tree I'd bought, undecorated except for one silver ornament. The condo was modest by anyone else's standards, 2 bedrooms, all neutral tones, but it felt expansive, because it was mine, because no one's approval lived in the walls. I unpacked a box labeled gallery pieces and pulled out a velvet tray of brooches and heirloom earrings, prepping for the upcoming exhibition in Chicago. My fingers paused on a delicate swan pin, identical to Grandma Dolores's, only never stolen. I clipped it gently to a fabric display board. No noise, no guilt, no forced dinners where everyone smiled like it was tradition, not tension. I watered the plants by the kitchen island and caught myself humming. Not a happy tune, just human. That afternoon, I opened the wooden box I kept near my desk. The note from Dolores still sat folded inside. Her handwriting was always a little shaky, even before arthritis. They were wrong, but you did right, it read. I raised a girl who knows how to walk alone. I ran my thumb along the edge of the page, then folded it again and tucked it behind an old Polaroid of us at the county fair. Dolores with her cotton candy. Me with braces and pigtails, holding a ribbon like it was gold. I used to think winning would make them stay. That success was the trade-off for love. Turns out, I just kept paying rent on their expectations. I sat by the fireplace with a mug of peppermint tea and let the memory drift. 11 years old, giving a speech at school after winning a regional competition, rows of folding chairs, but the 2 I'd saved stayed empty. Mom said Briley had a dance recital. Dad forgot entirely. They never came, I whispered to no one, but I stayed. Raymond called mid-afternoon, routine check-in. All's quiet, he said. No countersuits, no new loans attempted. You've got full financial autonomy now. Locked down, safe. Thank you, I replied. But peace isn't just paper. No, it's when they stop renting space in my head. He chuckled lightly. Then you're almost there. After we hung up, I walked to the back patio and stepped into the light December air. There was snow on the ground, but it wasn't cruel snow. It was soft, clean, forgiving. Later that day, I wandered into the Chazen Museum alone. There was a new exhibit on antique personal jewelry, intimate artifacts of women's lives from the last century. In a glass case near the entrance, a swan-shaped brooch caught my eye. A little girl beside me pointed. "That's pretty." "It is," I said, crouching slightly, "and it once belonged to someone who thought she'd never be seen." The girl smiled, then ran off to find her parents. I stood there a while longer, letting the light from the display case settle into my chest like warmth. Back home that evening, I lit a candle and let the silence return. This time it didn't sting, it comforted. I wrote nothing. I texted no one. I just sat with the idea that healing didn't mean erasing. It meant no longer expecting. They may never say sorry, I told myself. That's fine. I said goodbye the moment I stopped asking for love. I don't want revenge. I don't need validation. What I need is space, the kind that isn't filled with excuses, the kind that doesn't ask me to explain why I left. And if anyone ever asks, Yes, I'd do it all again. Peace didn't come easy, but I paid the full price, and I still think it was worth it. Looking back, I didn't lose my family. I lost the illusion that they'd ever truly seen me. And once I let go of that, I found space for something better. Peace on my own terms. Setting boundaries doesn't mean you're unkind. Saying no doesn't make you selfish. And protecting what you've built, especially when no one helped you build it, is not betrayal. It's survival. We don't owe anyone our silence just because they share our last name. Maybe you felt that pressure too, like you're supposed to keep giving until there's nothing left. Like your success somehow belongs to everyone else. But it doesn't. It's okay to choose yourself. It's okay to stop explaining. And it's okay to walk away. Not because you're bitter, but because you're finally free. Now I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever had to choose peace over people, or walk away from something, even someone, you thought was forever? Drop a 1 in the comments if this story touched you in any way, or let me know where in the world you're watching from. I'd really love to know. And hey, if this video helped you feel seen, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another story that speaks to the heart. Let's keep this conversation going. Your voice matters too.
My phone buzzed with a message from Mom. I swiped to answer. "Teresa, honey, we need you to come to dinner this Thursday," Mom said. Her voice had that serious tone she uses when something is going on. "Your father has an important announcement to make. You need to be there." I'm Teresa Palmer, 23 years old, and I just finished college last month. I have a degree in business administration with a focus on event planning. I've always been good at organizing things. My older sister, Janet, is 25. She finished college 2 years ago with a general business degree. She hasn't really settled into a career yet. Janet jumps from one job to another. 1 month she's selling wellness products, the next she's trying to start a fashion blog with her friends. Nothing seems to stick. But she always calls herself an entrepreneur trying different things. Mom and Dad never say much about her jumping between jobs. Thursday came fast. I pulled into my parents' driveway at 5:30 p.m. and saw Janet's car already there. When I walked inside, they were all sitting at the dining table, talking excitedly. "There she is," Dad called out, lifting his glass. Just in time, Mom hugged me, and Janet gave a quick wave. I sat down and joined their chat about some reality TV show I didn't watch. After dinner, Dad cleared his throat and stood up. I could tell this was the big moment. "I've made a decision," he said, looking at Janet and me. "I'm retiring next month. I'm handing over the restaurant to Janet." My fork dropped onto my plate. The restaurant, Dad's pride and joy for the last 21 years, was going to Janet. "Janet will run it, and she'll pay your mother and me a share of the profits," he continued. "It's time for me to enjoy life a little." Janet smiled wide and clapped her hands like she had just won a prize. I just sat there, shocked. Dad turned to me and said, "Teresa, you've just graduated. You'll need to find your own path." "I don't have another business to give you," Dad said. Mom nodded. "We gave you a good education. Now it's up to you to use it." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Wait a minute," I said. "You gave Janet an education too, but you're also giving her a successful business. I have experience working in the restaurant. I even have the right degree. Janet has no experience in food service. She spent college entering beauty pageants instead of studying." Dad's face grew cold. "This decision is final. We're not discussing it anymore." I looked at Janet. She just shrugged and gave a smug smile. Mom wouldn't meet my eyes. "Fine," I said, pushing my chair back. "I should get going." I said quick goodbyes and left. As I drove home, memories rushed back. In high school, I used to organize themed parties and birthday events at the restaurant for free. Mom and Dad said it was good practice. I knew those events brought in extra money. I had shown my skills early on, and they had seen it too. When I got to my apartment, I still felt confused. Janet had never even liked working at the restaurant. She complained whenever Dad asked for help, especially during holidays. Meanwhile, I practically grew up there, learning everything about running the place. College gave me even more experience. I organized parties, graduations, and even weddings for other students. I had saved almost $20,000 from those jobs, planning to use it one day for my own business. That night, lying in bed staring at the ceiling, I realized something important. I didn't need their restaurant. I had the skills, the experience, and some savings. I could start my own business, an event planning company for parties, weddings, and anniversaries. I already had connections from college and vendors I had worked with. I didn't need a fancy office. I could work from home and use my car to move supplies. By the next morning, my sadness had turned into determination. If my parents didn't believe in me, I would prove them wrong. I decided I would build something from nothing, something that was completely mine. I opened my laptop and started writing a business plan. I was going to show them I could succeed without their help. Before I went to sleep that night, I had picked a name for my company, Milestone Moments. It felt perfect. Every celebration is a milestone in someone's life, and starting my business was a big milestone for me too. The next morning, I registered my business and started reaching out to people I knew. No office, no employees, just me, my car, and a lot of determination. Let Janet have the restaurant. I was going to build something even better. The first 4 months of running Milestone Moments were really tough. I worked 18 hours a day, 7 days a week. My apartment turned into my headquarters. The kitchen table was full of contracts. The living room had samples everywhere, and my car was packed with decorations. My phone was always in my hand. I called old college contacts and vendors I had worked with before, friends who did catering, photography, and music. Most days I was driving around, meeting clients, picking up supplies, or looking at venues. You need business cards? Shirley, my old college roommate who worked at a printing company, asked. I can get you a discount. That would be amazing, I said, feeling so grateful. I was working on a very small budget. Because I didn't pay for an office, I could offer better prices to my clients. Instead of hiring delivery services, I carried everything myself. My little Honda became famous among vendors. They joked, "Here comes Teresa's mobile office." Whenever I arrived, I landed my first big client through a friend's recommendation, a 31th birthday party for 100 guests. The budget was small, but I made it work. The client was really happy, and soon people started hearing about me. About 5 months later, my parents invited me to Thursday dinner again. I hadn't seen them since they announced Janet would take over the restaurant. So, how's the job hunting going? Dad asked as he served the roast. I'm not job hunting, I said. I started my own business. Janet snorted. What business? I launched an event planning agency, I replied. I'm organizing parties, weddings, and business events, I said. Mom and Dad exchanged looks. That's not a real business, Dad said. Janet has a proper operation, an office at the restaurant, employees, structure. Yeah, Janet added. Where's your office? That beat up Honda. They all laughed. Mom touched my arm gently. Honey, you should find something more stable. Maybe Janet could hire you, she suggested. I could use a waitress, Janet said with a smirk. I felt my face get hot. I don't need your pity job. I'm doing fine on my own, I said. Driving around town selling party supplies isn't a career, Dad said. Janet is running a real business. I pushed my plate away. I wasn't hungry anymore. I need to go, I said. I have a client meeting early tomorrow. As I drove home, their laughter echoed in my mind. But instead of making me sad, it made me even more determined. I was going to show them what I could build. 7 months later, I landed my first wedding job, 300 guests at the Henderson Hotel. It was a huge breakthrough. With the deposit, I hired my first assistant, Christine, a recent graduate with event experience. Together, we pulled off a perfect wedding, and it led to 3 more bookings. My family still didn't seem impressed. At Thanksgiving, I overheard Dad talking to my uncle. Teresa? Oh, she's doing some little party thing, driving around in her car. I don't know what she's thinking, he said. I bit my tongue and stayed away from family gatherings after that. Their negativity wasn't worth my time. Instead, I focused everything on growing my business. By month 8, I had regular work and needed more help. I hired Eric to handle logistics and Anna to help with clients. At first, we squeezed into my apartment for meetings. One day, Eric said, "Teresa, we need a real office." He was right. I took a deep breath and signed a lease for a small office downtown. It wasn't fancy, but it had a front desk for meeting clients and enough space for our growing team. The monthly rent scared me, but it was time to move forward. By the 1-year mark, Milestone Moments was running several events at the same time. We had expanded to business events and even planned a charity gala that got featured in the local business journal. I now had 5 employees and a strong reputation for creative, well-organized events, even though we were still growing. I kept my spending low and made sure everything in the business ran smoothly. Every dollar we made either went back into the business or into my emergency fund. I had seen too many new businesses fail because they spent too much too soon. One Saturday afternoon, the office phone rang. I didn't recognize the number. "Milestone Moments, this is Teresa," I answered. "Teresa, it's Dad," he said. My stomach tightened. "Hi, Dad, what's up?" I asked. "Your mother and I would like you to come over for dinner tomorrow," he said. "We need to talk about something important." The next evening, I showed up at their house, feeling nervous. They greeted me like everything was normal, even though they had spent the past year putting down my career. After dinner, Dad cleared his throat. "We have a proposal for you," he said. "The restaurant is struggling. We don't have as many customers as before. We want to host a Thanksgiving-themed event to bring people in. My friend Brian recommended an amazing event planning company, said they're the best in the city." Dad paused, looking uncomfortable. "Turns out it's your company he was talking about. Is that true? Are you really doing that well?" I couldn't help but laugh a little. "You would know if you had ever asked about my business instead of making fun of it," I said. "Yes, we're doing very well. We have the highest customer ratings in the region." Janet leaned forward. "How much are you making?" she asked. I looked her straight in the eye. "More than the restaurant, that's for sure. Our revenue has tripled in the last 7 months." The room went quiet. I could feel the envy, even though no one said it out loud. "Could you help us with the Thanksgiving event?" Mom finally asked. I shook my head. "I'm sorry, but we're fully booked for the holiday season. Our clients book months ahead." As I drove home, I smiled. I hadn't built Milestone Moments to impress my family, but it still felt good to finally earn their respect. Tomorrow, I'd be back at my real office, not a car, leading my team and creating special events for our clients. I had found my place in life, all on my own, without anyone's help. For days after dinner at my parents' house, my phone rang again. While I was looking over proposals for an upcoming corporate event, Dad's number popped up on my phone. "Teresa, we've been talking," Dad said right away, without any greeting. "Your mother and I have decided that Janet should become your business partner." I almost dropped my phone. "Excuse me?" I said. "The restaurant is in serious trouble," he continued. "Janet needs a new opportunity. I'll take over the restaurant again and try to save it." My mind raced. Was this some kind of joke? "Dad, that's not happening," I said. "Milestone Moments is my company. I built it from nothing." "Your sister needs this," he insisted. "She couldn't run the restaurant properly, but she can help you. She has a business degree." I laughed, shocked. "She couldn't manage a successful restaurant, and now you think she can help me?" "Absolutely not. I don't need an unqualified assistant like Janet." Then Mom got on the phone. "We paid for your education, Teresa. You owe us." "You paid for Janet's education too?" I shot back. "Then you gave her a fully running business. I got nothing but your criticism." "We're done talking about this," I said, and hung up, my hands shaking with anger. I couldn't believe their nerve. They had handed Janet a successful business. She ran it into the ground, and now they expected me to give her a part of mine. The next morning, Christine, my assistant, buzzed my office. "Your parents are here to see you," she said. I took a deep breath. "Tell them I'm in a meeting." They came back the next day and the day after that. Each time, I refused to meet them. Finally, I told Christine not to let them into the office at all. When they couldn't reach me in person, they started calling. multiple times a day from both of their numbers. After a week of this, I blocked them. I needed to focus on my business, not on their unreasonable demands. 3 weeks later, Eric rushed into my office. "Teresa, you need to see this," he said, holding out his phone. He showed me our company's review page. Several new one-star reviews had appeared, all with similar wording. Terrible service. The director is incompetent and rude. Worst event planning experience ever. The director clearly doesn't know what she's doing. Don't waste your money on this company. The management is unprofessional. All the reviews were anonymous, and none of them mentioned any event details or order numbers. Respond to each one, I told Eric. Ask them for specifics about their experience. Within hours of Eric's responses, the reviews disappeared. The next evening, I got a notification on my phone, a direct message from Janet on Instagram. Just like the reviews, her message was full of threats. "There's more where that came from unless you make me a partner," she wrote. She even attached screenshots of the fake reviews. My blood boiled. I read Janet's message. She was actually trying to blackmail me. I didn't answer her. Instead, I called Edward, a lawyer I had met when planning his company's holiday party. "This is clear defamation," Edward said after looking at the screenshots I sent him. "Plus, her direct threat connects her to the fake reviews. She could face serious legal trouble for this." "Could you write a cease and desist letter?" I asked. "Make it clear that I'm ready to take this to court." "I'll have it ready tomorrow morning," he said. The next day, I sent Edward's letter to Janet, along with a short message. "This is your only warning. Keep it up, and I'll sue you for defamation and interfering with my business." The fake reviews stopped right away. My parents also stopped calling. Finally, there was silence, and I was grateful. Spring turned into summer, and business was booming. We hired 3 more people and expanded our services to include corporate retreats. The office was full of energy as we handled multiple events every weekend. The peace lasted until early fall. It had been 7 months since the fake reviews incident. I was deep in planning for our busiest season when the front desk called. "Your parents are here. They insist on seeing you," Christine said. I thought about turning them away again, but decided it was time to face them. "Send them in," I said. Mom looked tired. Dad looked stubborn as they sat down across from my desk. "Nice office," Dad said, glancing around. "You've done well for yourself. What do you want?" I asked, keeping my voice calm and professional. Mom fidgeted with her purse. "We've put the restaurant up for sale," she said. "We were wrong to pressure you before," Dad added, clearly not happy to admit it. "We were in a desperate situation," he said. I stayed quiet, waiting, knowing there was more. Dad leaned forward. "We're here because we need your help, Teresa. Financially. Since you don't want Janet as a partner, maybe you could give us a loan to help us through this rough time." So that was it. They hadn't come to apologize. They came asking for money. "No," I said simply. "Teresa, we're your parents," Mom said, upset. "You'll get plenty of money from selling the restaurant," I pointed out. "I know how much the property is worth. You're not as desperate as you're pretending to be." Dad's face darkened. "Family should help family," he said. "I agree," I said. "But this isn't about helping. It's about you trying to take advantage of me. You gave Janet a business and gave me nothing but criticism. Now her failure is somehow my problem?" "No." "You're being selfish," Mom snapped. "I'm being fair," I said. "You can solve your own problems, just like I had to solve mine." After they left, I felt like a heavy weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I had finally stood my ground completely. The next day, my phone rang. It was Aunt Samantha, Dad's sister. "Teresa, I want you to know what your parents are saying about you," Aunt Samantha said. "They're telling everyone you refuse to help them with money. But I know they have plenty of savings and will get a good price for the building." I wasn't surprised, but it still hurt to hear it confirmed. "They're mostly angry because of Janet," Aunt Samantha continued. "She refuses to get a regular job. She says she doesn't want to be just an employee. Your parents are still paying for everything, and now she's asking for money to start another business." "Let me guess," I said. "They finally said no?" "Yes," Aunt Samantha replied. But instead of blaming Janet, they're blaming you. After I hung up, I thought about it. I didn't feel sorry for my parents. They had created this mess by always supporting Janet and putting me down. Now, they were dealing with the results of their choices. 3 weeks after that call, I was sitting in my office reviewing applications for a new event coordinator. Milestone Moments had grown so much that we needed another full-time planner to handle all our new events. Your 11 o'clock is here, Christine said over the intercom. I welcomed Pamela, an experienced coordinator with great references, and we started the interview. Halfway through, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Don't think this is over. Mom and Dad might have given up, but I haven't. You owe me, Janet. I silenced my phone and focused back on the interview, but the message stuck in my mind. Her threat came true faster than I expected. The very next day, while I was meeting with the bride-to-be in the conference room, our social media manager sent me an alert. Someone's posting lies about us everywhere. They're saying we overcharge and do a bad job. They're tagging all our major clients. I quickly excused myself and rushed to my office. Sure enough, anonymous accounts were spreading lies about Milestone Moments on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Contact our lawyer immediately, I told our social media manager, and prepare a statement for our clients, explaining we're dealing with targeted harassment. Within a few hours, Edward, our lawyer, traced the posts back to Janet's IP address. She hadn't even tried to hide it. Edward sent her a final legal warning, and this time he copied our parents on the email. The message was simple: stop now, or we'll file a lawsuit with the evidence we have. After that, the posts quickly disappeared. Then my office phone rang. It was Mom. Without even saying hello, she shouted, "What are you doing to your sister?" I took a deep breath. I'm protecting my business from her attacks. The same business you and Dad called nonsense for years, I said. She's family. You're threatening to sue family, Mom said, her voice shaking. She's threatening my career and reputation, I answered. If she were anyone else, she'd already be in court. Mom's voice cracked. Your father, and I don't know what to do with her. She refuses to find a job. The restaurant sale will be final next month, and she expects us to give her money to start another business. For a moment, I felt a little sorry for them, not for Janet, but for my parents. They had created this problem by favoring her and making excuses for her all these years. Now, they didn't know how to fix it. That's not my problem, I said at last. I have a company to run. After I hung up, I sat quietly, thinking about how much had changed. 3 years ago, after that awful family dinner, I was heartbroken that my parents chose Janet over me. Now I owned a growing business, and Janet was still struggling, even though everything had been handed to her. The next morning, I got an unexpected email from Dad. Teresa, the restaurant sale will close next Sunday. Your mother and I are moving to Kentucky next month. We've bought a condo there. Janet will stay in her apartment here. We know you don't want to hear from us, but we wanted you to know where we'll be. Reading between the lines, I realized they were finally putting distance between themselves and Janet. It was the first smart decision they'd made in a long time. I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded the email to Aunt Samantha, who called me right away. They didn't tell you the full story, she said. When they refused to buy Janet a franchise, she threw a tantrum. She even threatened to sue them for the restaurant profits, saying they had promised her money for life. That's when your father finally snapped and told her she was on her own. Later that week, we celebrated our company's 2nd anniversary. We had moved into bigger offices 7 months earlier, and now we had 20 employees and close relationships with key vendors. The space was full of laughter and excitement. As I looked around at everything we had built, I felt a wave of pride. Speech. Eric called out, raising his glass. I climbed onto a chair, feeling emotional. 3 years ago, I started this company with nothing but a dream and my car, I said. Everyone told me it wouldn't work, that I needed connections, money, or luck. I paused, thinking about how my own family had doubted me. But what I really needed was right here. A vision, hard work, and eventually all of you. The room filled with applause. And my heart felt full. The day after a party, a delivery arrived at the office, a small potted plant with a card. It said, "Congratulations on your success. We were wrong. Mom and Dad." I put the plant on my windowsill, not sure how to feel. It wasn't a real apology, but it was something. 4 days later, as I was leaving the office, I saw someone standing by my car. It was Janet. "Before you call security," she said quickly, "I just want to talk." I crossed my arms. "I'm listening," I said. "I need a job," she admitted, staring at the ground.
Any job.
Mom and Dad cut me off. They're moving, and I have rent due next week. I couldn't miss the irony. After all her demands to be my business partner, now she was asking to be my employee. "Why would I hire you?" I asked. "You tried to destroy my company." She looked up, anger flashing in her eyes. "Because I'm your sister. Because I have nowhere else to go." "That's not my problem," I said, the same words I had said to my parents. "You had every advantage, Janet. Dad gave you a successful business, and you ruined it. You had the same education I did, but you spent your time on beauty pageants instead of learning. And when I built something of my own, you tried to steal it or tear it down. So, you're just going to leave me with nothing?" she shouted. I shook my head.
No, Janet.
"You left yourself with nothing. It's time you learned what the rest of us already know. Success takes real work, not shortcuts." Her face twisted with rage. "You think you're better than me?" "No," I said calmly. "I just worked harder. I learned from rejection. I didn't expect handouts." I unlocked my car. "I'd suggest you start with a real job, something entry-level, where you can actually learn the business from the ground up. That's what I would have done if Dad had given you the company instead of me." As I drove away, I saw her standing alone in the parking lot through my rearview mirror. That evening, I sat on my balcony, watching the sunset and thinking about everything that had happened. I still wasn't close with my parents and maybe never would be. Janet and I would probably stay distant too. But I had built something lasting, something completely my own. And I had learned something important. Sometimes the greatest gift is being forced to find your own way, to learn what you're truly capable of when no one hands you anything. My name is Linda, and I'm 32 years old. I work in an office and live with my husband, Paul. We've been married for a year, and we were starting to talk about having children. Life was mostly happy, but there was one issue that bothered me. His family visited way too often. Paul's parents live very close to our condo, and so does his sister's family. Because of that, they drop by all the time, often without calling first. It was hard for Paul and me to have any private time. I didn't say anything at first, but it was starting to get frustrating. One day, my mother-in-law looked around our condo and said, "The view here is so nice. I'd love to live in a place like this." My father-in-law agreed, then added, "There's an empty room here. Why don't we all just move in?" Paul smiled and replied, "That sounds like a great idea. We could save money on rent, and it would be fun to have Mom and Dad around." He was acting like the condo was his. But here's the thing, it isn't. This condo actually belongs to my brother. My husband just assumed that after marrying me, it became his, which is not true at all. This misunderstanding started back when we got engaged. Paul and his parents visited my family, and they were surprised to learn that both of my parents had passed away. They offered their sympathy, but my brother calmly explained, "It hasn't been that long since we lost our parents, so we're still getting used to it." Even though my brother explained everything clearly, Paul and his parents seemed to miss an important detail. The condo was passed down to my brother and me, and my brother is the actual owner. Then one day, Paul's parents came to me and said something shocking. My father-in-law looked serious and handed me a letter. It said, "We'll give you $200,000 in alimony. Please divorce our son and leave this condo. Paul is not to blame for anything, but since we are taking over this condo, we believe you should be paid." At first, I felt annoyed. How could they say something like that? But when I realized they thought the condo belonged to Paul and not to my brother, I couldn't help but laugh quietly to myself. They were completely wrong, and I almost felt bad for them. Later, when the truth came out and Paul and his parents learned that the condo wasn't ours but my brother's, their faces were priceless. They were shocked and embarrassed. I didn't even have to argue. The truth spoke for itself. In the end, they realized they had made a huge mistake. And as for me, I was just glad I kept calm and let everything come to light on its own. When my husband and I got married, his parents seemed nice at first, but over time I started to feel like they looked down on my family. One time, when they visited our old family home, my mother-in-law said something that made me uncomfortable. She looked around and said, "No offense, but this house is a bit old. Weren't you struggling with money?" Her words stung a little, but my brother handled it calmly. He smiled politely and replied, "Sorry if we made you worry, and thank you." Even though he was being kind, I knew we weren't actually having a hard time. The house may have looked old, but that didn't mean we were poor. Our parents had passed away before I got married. My dad died about 3 years before the wedding. He had worked for a large company and provided well for us. My mom, who was a full-time homemaker, passed away a year before him. They both did everything they could to raise us right and make sure we were able to live independently. I had shared this with my husband, but it seemed like he hadn't explained it properly to his parents. Later, my father-in-law turned to my brother and asked, "What do you do for a living?" His tone was a bit rude, like he didn't expect my brother to be doing well. My brother replied, "I'm self-employed." But what my in-laws didn't know is that my brother owned several properties and made good money from the rent. In fact, the condo my husband and I were living in belonged entirely to my brother. I had been living there for free even before I got married. Still, my mother-in-law made another rude comment. "I guess your business isn't going very well. That's why you're living in such an old house." My brother's wife, who has always been like a sister to me, responded lightly, "Yes, it's old but very spacious. Cleaning it is a big job." She said it with a small smile, but I could tell she was being a bit sarcastic. Sadly, my mother-in-law didn't catch the hint. Even though she was clearly upset by how my in-laws were acting, my brother's wife stayed calm and polite. When the conversation started to feel awkward, my brother changed the topic smoothly. He asked, "So, after the wedding, you'll be living in the condo Linda is staying in, right?" My husband and I nodded. Then, my father-in-law said something that really hurt me. "How can Linda, who had no money, live in such a nice condo?" I felt embarrassed, but before I could say anything, my brother just laughed and said casually, "The condo was bought using the inheritance our father left us." I was surprised to hear him say that, especially since it wasn't exactly true. But in that moment, I realized he was trying to protect me and keep the peace. His calm attitude made the situation a little easier, and I was grateful for that. I was just about to tell the truth when my brother's wife quickly stopped me. She smiled and said, "What? Linda bought this condo? I thought it was rented. You've been so modest about it." My mother-in-law looked shocked and a little nervous. Seeing her reaction, my brother nodded proudly, playing along with the story. The truth is, I had always told my husband and his parents that the condo was rented. I didn't pay rent, but the place was actually under my brother's name, not mine. So what my brother said wasn't a total lie, but it wasn't the full truth either. After hearing what my brother said, my in-laws suddenly started acting very differently. They still looked down a bit on my brother, but now they were super friendly to me. It was like they had flipped a switch. I didn't know what to think at first. After they left, I asked my brother, "Why did you lie about the condo being mine?" Now Paul's parents believe something that isn't true. I was upset, but my brother calmly replied, "They didn't treat you with respect." So I decided to play a little trick. And see? Once they thought the condo was yours, their attitude changed right away. He was right. My in-laws had been treating me like I wasn't good enough. But once they believed I owned the condo, they suddenly started being nicer to me. It made me realize how much they had been judging me before. My brother's wife was also worried about me. She had noticed how rude my in-laws were. "Just be careful with Paul's parents," she said kindly. "If you ever feel uncomfortable or need someone to talk to, you can always come to us." Her words made me feel safe and supported. My brother asked me to keep the secret, so I didn't tell anyone that the condo really belonged to him. It surprised me how quickly my in-laws changed their behavior based on what they believed. They didn't think much of my brother, which was sad, but it didn't bother me too much since we weren't living together. Even though my in-laws' house was close by, it was easy to visit them on holidays. I was happily married to Paul, and I felt like my new life had just started. I thought I had moved on from that strange day, but then something unexpected happened. I was planning to visit my in-laws' home for Christmas, but before I could go, they showed up at our condo, with Paul's sister too. I was surprised and asked, "I thought we were going to your house for Christmas. What's the occasion?" When my in-laws suddenly showed up at our condo for Christmas, I was surprised. I asked them why they had come without telling us in advance. My sister-in-law just laughed and said, "This place is cozy and has a great view, so we thought we'd drop by. Don't mind us, Linda." Even though she said not to worry, I ended up rushing around, making coffee and preparing snacks for everyone. Then my mother-in-law said, "Linda, I'd rather have roasted turkey than the usual Christmas food. Can you order some?" Without asking me, Paul picked up the phone and ordered it right away. I asked him, "Did you know your parents were coming?" Paul looked surprised and said, "Why are you acting like that? It's normal for them to come here. This is their home too." I was shocked. His parents had told him they'd be visiting, but no one had said a word to me. Paul acted like it was completely normal and that, as his wife, I should just accept it and not complain. Even though I was tired, I took care of everything. As the evening went on, my in-laws didn't seem like they were planning to leave. I started wondering, are they staying over? Just then, Paul said, "Get a room ready for my parents to sleep in, Linda. You're not very thoughtful." He didn't help at all. I had to prepare everything on my own. My in-laws and sister-in-law stayed up all night in the living room and finally fell asleep there. The next morning, after they left, Paul looked pleased and said, "Everyone had a great time. They said they want to come and stay again. It's a good thing we live here." Then he walked away like it was nothing. I couldn't believe it. They're coming again? I started dreading the next holiday. But it didn't even take a month. They came back again. "We'll stay over tonight," my mother-in-law said. "We already ordered food, so don't worry. Just pay the bill for us." They walked in and my sister-in-law immediately started setting up a party in the living room. When the pizza and fried chicken arrived, I was the one who had to pay. Paul wasn't home yet and had no idea what was going on. When he finally came back, I told him how upset I was. "It's really stressful when your family suddenly shows up to stay," I said. "You knew they were coming, didn't you?" Paul looked confused and said, "What's the problem?" "I told you they'd visit again. They're always welcome here." I was speechless. He didn't understand at all. Seeing my in-laws take over our home like it was theirs, without caring how I felt, made me worry. Will they end up living here permanently? Later, I talked to my brother and his wife. His wife was furious. "That's awful. You really need to talk to Paul and fix this." I appreciated her advice, and I knew she was right. I couldn't rely on my husband to help fix the problem. He always listened to his parents and didn't stand up for me. Lately, he had been coming home very late, so we didn't even have time to talk. I explained everything to my brother and his wife, and they were shocked. My in-laws would come over even when my husband wasn't home. It felt like nothing I said mattered to them. My brother and I started thinking seriously about how to change the situation. Then, with a determined look, my brother said, "Maybe I should talk to Paul. As your brother, he might listen to me." I felt a little hopeful. Maybe Paul would finally understand if my brother spoke to him calmly. But when my brother invited Paul over to talk, Paul didn't come alone. He brought his parents and his sister with him. Paul said, "Linda is part of our family now, so I don't want you interfering." My brother tried to talk, but my father-in-law kept interrupting him, making it impossible to have a proper conversation. Then my father-in-law said something rude. "Are you upset because we're enjoying the condo more than you enjoy your old house? Are you jealous?" My mother-in-law added a mean comment too, siding with her husband. If I had been there, I probably would have gotten very angry. But my brother stayed calm and simply said, "Please don't come to the condo anymore." My sister-in-law shouted, Did you call us here just to say that? What a waste of time. She stormed out, and my husband and in-laws followed her. My brother had only wanted to talk to Paul privately, but with the whole family there, everything got out of hand. Even he was shocked by how badly things went. After hearing what happened, I felt really embarrassed. I'm sorry for dragging you into this. I told my brother on the phone. That family is really strange. He laughed a little, but I could tell he was still upset. Yeah, they're a weird bunch, he said. Then he added something that hit me hard. Linda, maybe it's time you think about your future with Paul. His words stuck with me. Just as I was about to hang up, my brother's wife said something that made me nervous. Is Paul hiding something? He's been coming home late all the time. I nodded and said, I feel the same way. Something doesn't seem right. I told them I suspected Paul might be cheating. My brother suddenly raised his voice, something he rarely does. If he's cheating while you're doing everything at home, that's not okay. I'll find out what's going on. Hearing his strong words gave me a bit of comfort. Meanwhile, my husband still had no idea how upset I was. He kept coming home late every night and I didn't know what he was doing. As for my in-laws, they were staying over so often that it started to feel like they were moving in. One day after they left, I checked the closet and I was shocked. There were suitcases and boxes full of their clothes. It looked like they were planning to live in our home for good. I was really angry, but then I reminded myself, this condo isn't even mine. If my husband really is cheating, I'll just leave. Whatever my husband and his family do after that is no longer my problem. Once I had that thought, I suddenly felt lighter. Even if Paul isn't cheating, I can't stay with a husband who puts his parents before me. That's not the kind of life I want. Then I started thinking about Paul's sister. She comes over often, but I've never seen her husband. I wondered, is there something wrong in their marriage too? If my in-laws and Paul's sister really planned to live here, what would happen to her husband? I barely knew him. We only said hello at the wedding, but I couldn't help wondering how he felt about all this. Paul had mentioned once that he hadn't seen his brother-in-law in a long time. The idea of all of us living together felt overwhelming. But I reminded myself I don't plan to live with them, so maybe I shouldn't worry about it. Then one day, I came home from work, and there they were, my in-laws and sister-in-law, sitting in the condo like they owned the place. We'll all be living here from now on, they said. Paul gave us the keys. They spoke like it was already decided. I looked at my sister-in-law, who seemed so happy about it. I didn't say a word. I just watched them quietly. My calm reaction seemed to bother my mother-in-law. She looked at me and said with a little anger, "Why are you so calm? Even Paul didn't tell you about this." Hearing that made me even more upset. How could Paul do this behind my back? I felt betrayed. But Paul wasn't home, so I had to keep my feelings inside. Then my father-in-law smiled and said something unbelievable. "We'll give you $300,000 in alimony. Just divorce Paul and leave the condo. Paul didn't do anything wrong, but since we're taking over the place, we think it's fair to pay you." I was shocked, not only by what he said, but by how confident he looked while saying it. The whole thing was so ridiculous, I actually started to laugh. It felt like I was watching a scene from a soap opera. Then my sister-in-law said sharply, "You should feel lucky to get money. Just pack your things and leave quietly." I grabbed the bag I had already packed and got ready to leave. But just before walking out, I turned to them and said, "I'll bring the divorce papers later. Please prepare the condo's ownership papers too." Their eyes lit up with joy. They really believed they were getting the condo. My father-in-law said excitedly, "Just bring the documents, and we'll sign the contract quickly." Looking at his happy face, I couldn't hold back my laughter anymore. I laughed out loud and left the house. When I arrived at my brother's house, my sister-in-law greeted me with a smile. "Perfect timing, Linda," she said. The results of the investigation about Paul's cheating just came in. Inside, my brother looked serious. He said, "It's true. Paul was cheating. You should leave him right away." I told my brother how Paul's family kicked me out of the condo and pressured me to get a divorce. That made him even more angry.
What?
"That's insane. Totally unfair," he shouted. My brother rarely gets that mad, so I was a little scared. Then my sister-in-law stepped in to calm him down. Well, look on the bright side, she said. Most people don't get $300,000 after being cheated on. It really did feel like Paul's family thought they were buying the condo for me in exchange for that money. I started to think about how they'd react when they found out the truth about Paul's affair. I couldn't help but feel a bit excited. The next day, my brother and I went to the condo. As soon as we arrived, my father-in-law greeted us and said, "Today's the day, right? Did you bring the contract for the condo?" But before talking about the condo, we had Paul sign the divorce papers. "We'll be using this nice condo for our family now, so don't be upset," Paul said, acting like nothing was wrong. He didn't know that we already knew about his affair. After he signed the papers, my brother looked him straight in the eye and said, "You cheated on Linda and lied to her. This money is just the least you can do. And don't come near her again." My in-laws were shocked. Paul's face went pale. My father-in-law turned to him and asked, "Paul, is this true? Is that why you weren't coming home?" Paul stayed quiet and didn't say a word. Then Paul's sister, almost as if she didn't care, muttered, "Well, that's just how marriage is. If someone cheats, maybe both people are at fault." I ignored her. I had no interest in her opinion. I told them to continue with the paperwork for the condo. My father-in-law proudly said, "The money's been sent, so the condo is ours now." He seemed eager to finish the deal and started signing the documents. While he was signing, Paul just sat there, looking uncomfortable. He wouldn't even look at me or my brother. When the papers were done, my mother-in-law said proudly, "It's finished. This is our home now. You have nothing to do with it, so leave." So my brother and I quietly left. In the elevator, I sighed. Their misunderstanding was giving me a headache. Even after reading the documents, they really believe they own the condo? Then my brother said something that made me think. Where did that $300,000 come from? I don't remember Paul's family ever being rich. He was right. It didn't make sense. Something felt off. I couldn't even ask my husband where the $300,000 came from. I could only wonder. Then, about a month after we separated, my ex-husband and his parents showed up at my parents' house in a panic. "Why do I have to pay rent for that condo? It's supposed to be mine," my ex-husband shouted angrily. My father-in-law looked worried and said, "We can't afford such high rent. We thought we were buying the condo with that $300,000. We didn't know it was a rental. We want our money back." My mother-in-law also yelled, "We didn't need to pay all that money. Give us back the extra amount." As they kept shouting and demanding things, my brother stayed calm. Then he finally spoke the truth. "You see," he said, "I'm actually the owner of that condo. In fact, I own the entire building." Hearing this, my ex-husband and his parents went completely silent. They didn't know what to say. They finally realized that what my father-in-law had signed was just a rental contract, not a property agreement. He had misunderstood everything, and now it was too late. Even if the condo had been mine, it wouldn't have gone to Paul after a divorce. My brother added, "You're joking if you think it would just become his." But even after hearing the truth, my mother-in-law still shook her head. "We still want the money back," she said. I replied calmly, "That money was paid because of Paul's cheating. We accepted it as compensation. We can't return it after everything that happened." Then my mother-in-law spoke again, but this time her voice was shaky. "We were planning to use the condo as collateral for a loan. But now that we don't own it, we can't repay the $300,000. That surprised me. I looked at all of them. My ex-husband and his parents had their heads down, looking completely defeated. Then I realized something. My sister-in-law wasn't there. She was usually with them. "Where's your sister?" I asked. My ex-husband looked uncomfortable. Then he admitted something shocking. It turns out she was cheating too. Her husband found out, and now they're getting divorced. He's asking her for compensation, just like you did with me. But she's already in debt from the money we gave you, so she can't pay him. Suddenly, everything made sense. I remembered when my sister-in-law said something strange back when Paul's affair was revealed. Now I knew what she meant. She wasn't just talking about my marriage, she was talking about her own, too. I finally understood what my sister-in-law had meant before. Even after learning the truth, my ex-husband and his family kept complaining about the condo and asked for their money back. But my brother and I stood our ground and didn't give in. As my ex-husband was leaving, he threw one last comment at me. "Because of you, even my girlfriend broke up with me," he said, almost in tears. But I didn't feel bad. I had only done what was right. They were the ones who lied and cheated. This situation was their fault, not mine. Soon after, my ex-husband's family had to move out of the condo because they couldn't afford the rent. They moved to a smaller, cheaper place and started over. My sister-in-law moved with them, and they all struggled with money. They had debts to pay, and even the interest was hard to manage. Now, both my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, who used to stay home, had to find jobs. But even with them working, it wasn't enough to fix everything. I heard they were always arguing and blaming each other. The family that once seemed so close was falling apart under the weight of their troubles: the divorce, the money problems, and the cost of moving. Meanwhile, I returned to the calm and peaceful home of my brother and his wife. Things were finally starting to feel normal again. Then, one day, they shared some beautiful news with me. My sister-in-law was pregnant. My brother was so happy when he told me, and I couldn't help but smile too. Seeing their little family filled with love and excitement made me feel hopeful again. It made me realize what I want for myself. I want to build a life like theirs, a warm home, full of love and respect. A family that supports one another. Now, I'm open to new beginnings. I'm ready to meet someone kind, someone who understands what it means to care for each other. One day, I hope to start a happy family of my own, just like my brother's, full of laughter, peace, and love.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kelly. I want to tell you about my terrible stepmother, Laura. I'll call her Laura because she never wanted to be my mother. When my dad, Brian, introduced me to her, she told me, "I don't want you thinking I'm your mother. You're just my husband's daughter, nothing else. You're a teenager, so don't expect me to do anything for you." I replied, "That's okay, Laura. I can take care of myself. I just want my dad to be happy. I won't get in the way." She snapped back, "You're already in the way, you little witch. Don't try to be smart with me. I know how to handle worthless teens like you. Once you turn 19, I'll make sure you're out of our lives so I can have Brian all to myself." The talk got worse, with Laura saying awful things about me and my late mom. My dad was a widower, and my mom died when I was 8. I missed her a lot, and it took Dad a long time to date again. That's why I never told him about Laura's nasty words and behavior, which was a big mistake. After she married Dad, she became a nightmare. Even Dad was surprised by her behavior. Laura always targeted me and tried to get me out of the house. She hated kids and didn't want me around, but she never told Dad that before they dated. When Dad refused to abandon me, she started harassing me. She would mess up her own food and blame me, saying, "Look at what your daughter did, Brian. She spoiled my cooking because I wouldn't cook for her. She's going to poison me one day." Dad asked, "Kelly, do you have an explanation for this?" I replied, "I swear, Dad, I don't know anything about this. I'm happy to cook for myself. I wasn't even home before you came back, and I bought takeout to eat in my room." "Oh God, she's lying now, Brian. I'm telling you, get rid of her before she kills me." This is just one example of what Laura has done for 5 years. This time, she blamed me for too much salt in her food, which she added herself. It was crazy, but Dad believed me because I had proof. Over the years, she did much more. She disconnected my phone, locked me out of the house for 6 hours, took my car keys on the day of an important test, and threw away my project that I spent a week on. Dad tried to make her understand that this wasn't okay, but she never listened. She would be nice for a few days and then do something terrible again. After a year of living with Laura, I got a job to pay for my own things. I didn't want her messing with my life anymore. Dad was upset, but I told him it was good for me to have my own money and not feel guilty. Laura, a stay-at-home wife, considered Dad's money her own, so she didn't want him spending too much on me, not even for basics. I tried to stay invisible so Laura would leave me alone, but she never did. She wanted to get rid of me, but she didn't know what was coming. The big drama happened a few weeks after my 19 birthdays. Laura was in a good mood, singing around the house because she thought she could finally kick me out. She didn't know I overheard her planning to ambush me, so when I came home from work and saw my stuff packed, I wasn't upset. I was amused. I said, "Hey Laura, why is my stuff packed? Are we going on vacation?" "Don't act so smart, Kelly. I hope you remember my words," she replied. "I told you that once you turned 19, I'd kick you out. Well, it's time for you to leave now. I even packed your stuff to make it easier for you." "So, you want to kick me out of my house?" "Oh no, Kelly, this is my house. I don't have to keep you here anymore. I'll deal with Brian later, but you are definitely leaving." Laura had a smug look on her face, already planning what she'd do with my room. But like I said, not so fast, Laura. Karma is coming for you. I calmly took out some documents from my bag and handed them to her. She looked confused, so I said, "I think you need to look at these papers first, Laura. I've been meaning to give you this for a while. Your talk about eviction just reminded me. What are these papers? Why do I need to read them? Why don't you take a look and find out?" Laura sat down and started reading the papers. Her confusion turned to shock and then disbelief. She looked at me and then back at the papers. Finally, she got angry and said, "Is this an eviction notice in my name? What the hell, Kelly? What is the meaning of this?" "It means I want you out of my house in a month. You know, the usual thing an eviction notice means. You can't serve me eviction papers. You can't do that. This is my house, and I'm the only one who can kick people out." "No, Laura, this is my house and has always been. My dad was just a caretaker until I turned 19. Now, it belongs to me. I recently completed the documentation process." "No, that's impossible. Brian can't just give you this house. It's our marital asset, and he can't give it to you without consulting me." "How is this a marital asset, Laura? Dad had this house before you were in the picture. I guess he didn't tell you, but this house actually belonged to my maternal grandparents. They left it to me and appointed Dad to hold it until I turned 19. No, 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 you must be lying. This can't be true. You're trying to scam me and kick me out of the house. Wait until your father hears about this. He'll kick you out instead." Laura then made the mistake of calling my father downstairs. She forgot that she never asked him if she could kick me out. Even if the house belonged to my father, she should have asked him first. She knew he would say no, so she tried to do it behind his back. In her frenzy, she overlooks this and involved Dad. I didn't mind. It worked out better for me. Dad came downstairs and said, "Whoa, calm down, Laura. Why are you yelling like that? What's wrong? Why wouldn't I be screaming? Your daughter is making wild claims again. She's saying this house belongs to her and that she's kicking me out." Dad looked at me and said, "Kelly, what's going on? I need to know the truth." My dad is a good man who knows Laura can be difficult, so he always listens to both sides. This is something Laura hated because she wanted Dad to always take her side, no matter what. They fought about this many times, but Dad wanted to be fair to both of us, so he asked for my side too. I said, "Laura called me down and told me she was kicking me out. She said I couldn't stay in her house anymore. I knew she was planning this because I overheard her talking on the phone. So I served her an eviction notice instead." Dad turned to Laura and said, "What the hell, Laura? Who gave you permission to try and kick my daughter out? You never discussed this with me. Why am I just hearing about this now?" Laura realized she had messed up. Overwhelmed by the eviction notice, she forgot about being caught. I saw her panic before she turned hostile and defensive as usual. She said, "Your daughter is already an adult, Brian. We let her stay in the house rent-free for a month already. Most parents kick their kids out when they turn 19. Kelly needs to learn to live on her own and be responsible. That's for me to decide, Laura. You were not and never were her parent. You didn't contribute anything for Kelly. How did you think it was okay to decide when to kick her out? You've been unfair, Brian. I've put up with your favoritism for years because Kelly was a teenager, but now she needs to go. I won't let her stay in my house anymore. Who said this is your house? What deed shows your name on it? Well, it's your place, so I have equal rights to it since I'm your wife. This is my house too. I won't allow Kelly here anymore. She needs to go. This is not my house, and even if it was, you have no right to it. This is Kelly's house and her name is on it. Laura went pale when she heard that. She didn't expect my dad to back me up and say the house belonged to me. She lived in a fantasy where everything was hers just because she said so. Hearing otherwise was shocking for her. She began to cry and said, "Why would you say such a thing, Brian?" "Because the house belongs to Kelly. I'm just speaking the truth. You gave Kelly your house without consulting me. How could you do this, Brian? I'm your wife. You should have discussed this with me. I'm not okay with this. You had no problem going behind my back and trying to kick my daughter out. Why can't I do the same, Laura?" And there was nothing to discuss. This house was always supposed to be Kelly's. I was just the trustee who took care of it until she turned 19. The house was transferred to her name recently. Laura finally understood we were telling the truth. Dad even offered to show her the papers as proof. She was in too much shock to say anything coherent. She said, "You deceived me, Brian. I thought the house was yours. You lied to me. This is not fair." "I never lied to you, Laura. You never asked whose house this was when we got married. We signed a prenup saying our personal assets would remain personal." "Oh my God, this can't be true. You should have told me, Brian. Now Kelly is throwing us out. Look at how ungrateful your daughter is." "Brian, I am not throwing my dad out, Laura. That's just for you. You're the one who won't get to live in my house anymore. I would have considered letting you stay, but after you tried to kick me out, I changed my mind. You're going to leave. If you kick me out, your dad will follow. We're a couple. He won't abandon his wife." Now it was my father's turn to laugh. He had already made plans that I knew about, but he was unsure whether to go through with them. Today's events made his decision easier. He said, "Actually, no, I'm not following you, Laura. I will stay here and take care of my daughter. I've been on the fence about divorce for a while, and what you tried to do today sealed the deal. I will be filing tomorrow. Be ready for it." "Wait, what? Are you going to divorce me? You want to leave me over your daughter? You can't do that." "Yes, I can, Laura. Did you think I would forgive you for tormenting my daughter for 4 years? I thought you might change, and I've been patient, but now I know you will continue to be toxic. I don't want someone like you in my life or my daughter's." Laura took a step back as if physically hurt. She never expected a divorce so soon. My dad is usually a quiet man who doesn't do anything drastic. This was unlike him. He was mad, and it showed on his face. He didn't shout, but his tone made it clear he was very angry, making Laura even more anxious. She started to argue with my dad, and I chose to leave and go to my room. Dad and Laura fought for an hour, with Laura shouting and crying while my father explained his reasons calmly. After the fight, Dad came to my room. He seemed a little upset and didn't meet my eyes. He sat down and said, "Kelly, I know I need to apologize to you. I'm sorry, dear. I should have protected you better from Laura. I thought being fair and avoiding fights would help, but I was wrong and made things worse for you. You don't have to apologize, Dad. I know you loved Laura, and she wasn't like this when you married her. People change, and sometimes it takes time to see it. Wow, you've grown up a lot. I wish I had done things differently. I brought a mad woman into our lives. Well, what's done is done. I forgive you, Dad. You really tried your best, and I'm not complaining. Do you want to divorce Laura? I won't be mad if you don't. I understand. Girl, I'm not living with that mad woman anymore. I'm done. Her true face shocked me too much. I don't want her in my life anymore. I saw this coming, which is why I made the prenup. I worried she'd mess up your future and cause money troubles, so I thought it was the best way. See, you did think about me. You deserve to be happy, Dad. If Laura means nothing to you anymore, it's best you separate. I spent a lot of time reassuring my dad that he wasn't a bad parent. In fact, he did a lot for me, and I needed to make him believe that too. I'm not going to lie. I was super happy that my dad was finally getting rid of Laura. She wasn't right for him and had no business staying married to him after everything she did. Our talk went well, and Dad went to sleep in the guest room that night. I finally felt peaceful knowing Laura would soon be out of our lives for good. I hoped she would remember this lesson for the rest of her life. The real surprise came the next morning when I found Laura trying too hard to seem loving and caring. She was in the kitchen making me breakfast and acting like I was the best person in her life. Even Dad was giving her a confused look. After breakfast, I said, "Thanks for breakfast, Laura, but you don't have to do this anymore. I can make my own, like I have for the last 5 years. There's no need for sudden changes." "That's nonsense, Kelly. I'm happy to do this for you. Having our meals together can bring us closer as a family." "What's the need for that? We won't be a family anymore soon. You should have done this years ago. It's too late now." "Oh, come on, Brian. Don't be so hard on me. I'm trying. I can make this work. I'll start being a better parent to Kelly. We'll be the best mother-daughter duo ever, right, Kelly?" I knew Laura was trying to save herself. She'd come up with a plan overnight. Dad didn't trust her either and just looked a little amused. With Laura waiting for my reply, I said, "I don't think so, Laura. First, I'm 19 and don't need a new parent. I pay my own bills and will be off to college soon. Second, you are not, and never will be, my mother. That word doesn't suit you at all. Kelly, I'm sorry for being mean to you in the past. You need to give people a chance. We can be a happy family if you give me a chance, and it will help my marriage too. Dad says you have a few months left in this marriage. If you're trying to stay in this house, it won't work. I'm kicking you out anyway, and Dad is divorcing you. You've already done the damage, Laura. There's no point in acting innocent and sorry. I know you better than that." Laura saw her new plan wasn't working. I guess Laura didn't have anything else to use against us. She couldn't threaten to ruin Dad financially because of the prenup she signed. So her only option was to beg and cry. She started crying hysterically, begging me not to kick her out. She also pleaded with me to ask Dad to give her another chance. Then she turned to Dad, begging him to be more forgiving. Our entire day was filled with Laura begging and pleading for mercy. Since Dad and I were both off work that day, we had to endure her theatrics. Dad did leave for a while to contact the lawyer and file for divorce. Within a week, Laura received the divorce papers. After she got the papers, Laura stopped begging and crying. Dad and I told her she needed to get a job if she wanted a place to live and a lawyer for her divorce. Laura thought she could convince us to give her another chance, but that didn't happen. When the month was up, she was promptly kicked out. She caused some trouble when we told her to leave, but after Dad threatened her with more legal action, she left sobbing. Laura had no choice but to move in with a friend, since her own family couldn't stand her anymore. As she left, she took the negativity with her, and the house finally felt like home. It was such a relief to be rid of her toxic presence. In the weeks following Laura's departure, Dad and I worked on repairing our relationship and making the house a warm, welcoming place again. We redecorated the rooms, bringing in new furniture and adding personal touches that made the house feel truly ours. We also spent more time together, enjoying meals, watching movies, and talking about our future plans. It was a healing process for both of us, and we grew closer than ever before. Dad continued with the divorce proceedings, making sure everything was handled properly. He was determined to protect our home and ensure Laura could never cause us trouble again. Laura tried a few more times to contact Dad, hoping to sway him, but he stood firm. He was done with her manipulations and wanted to move forward with his life. I focused on my studies and preparations for college. With Laura gone, I could finally concentrate on my future without constant stress and conflict. Dad was incredibly supportive, helping me with college applications and cheering me on every step of the way. His belief in me boosted my confidence, and I knew I could achieve my dreams with him by my side. A few months after Laura left, Dad met someone new. Her name was Emma, and she was kind, caring, and genuine. Unlike Laura, she embraced me with open arms and treated me like family from the start. Emma and Dad's relationship blossomed naturally, without the tension and deceit that had plagued his marriage to Laura. As Dad and Emma grew closer, I could see the positive impact she had on him. He was happier, more relaxed, and full of hope for the future. Emma quickly became an important part of our lives, bringing joy and warmth to our home. She understood the pain we had gone through and was patient and understanding, never pushing too hard or making us feel uncomfortable. Seeing Dad happy and in love with someone who truly cared for him made me feel at peace. It was a stark contrast to the years of turmoil we had endured with Laura. Emma's presence brought stability and harmony, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of security and contentment. The following year, I left for college, excited about the new chapter in my life. Dad and Emma supported me every step of the way, visiting often and staying in touch. Their encouragement and love were a constant source of strength for me, helping me navigate the challenges of college life. It's been more than 3 years since Laura left, and our lives have changed for the better. Dad and Emma are now happily married, and I have thrived in college, pursuing my dreams with confidence and determination. Our home is a place of love, laughter, and support, a far cry from the hostile environment Laura had created. Looking back, I realize how much stronger we have become as a family. We faced adversity and came out on the other side, more united and resilient. Laura's departure was the best thing that could have happened to us, and I am grateful every day for the peace and happiness we now enjoy. I am now in college, which is close to home. Dad has successfully divorced Laura and is back to dating. He says he isn't looking to settle down again, but just wants some company sometimes. As for Laura, the last I heard, she moved into a flat with several roommates and is struggling to make ends meet. Since she doesn't have many qualifications, she's working a minimum wage job and just getting by. I saw her from afar at a grocery store. She looked like she had aged 11 years. Karma caught up with her, and hopefully, she learned a lesson never to try something like this again.
Now living with my parents, it hit me hard that my marriage, which I thought would bring happiness, was a sham. My husband, whom I trusted, was using me, and I felt betrayed by my in-laws. They seemed unaware of the realities of life. Facing the threat of being kicked out, I questioned the essence of family with these people. The decision was clear. I needed to take control quickly. I reached out to everyone and started planning the next chapter of my life. I arranged for a service to pick up the household items the next day. The furniture and appliances were taken away, which caused a panicked reaction from my husband. I am Linda Blair, a 37-year-old woman working from home since college. Despite a monthly commute, I am a full-time employee thanks to my accommodating company. A motorcycle accident during college left my legs disabled, confining me to a wheelchair. Despite ongoing rehabilitation, improvement seemed unlikely. I accepted my condition and initially thought I would be single forever. However, a blind date set up by friends rekindled my desire for companionship. I met James, my now husband, who, despite being 6 years older, had a youthful energy. His straightforward demeanor, though sometimes rude, intrigued me. James's genuine curiosity about my life in a wheelchair made me feel seen and understood. As we continued dating, I believed happiness awaited me with James and eagerly accepted his proposal after 5 months. Immediately after our marriage, things changed unexpectedly. James and I moved into my standalone house, which was a rental but very wheelchair-friendly. The previous tenant had made it accessible, and James liked the spaciousness. I spent a lot of time at home, so I naturally did most of the housework. Sometimes, when I asked James for help, he would claim he was too tired and refused to assist, even when I needed help in the bath. I managed on my own, but it took longer, and I missed the days when a caregiver visited twice a week. My frustrations grew as James ignored my requests to put away bath items, making everything take even more time. James didn't understand that the house was designed for my needs. It became clear that James was more attracted to the house and my ability to handle chores despite my disability. His unemployment and constant partying strained our relationship even more. While it was heartbreaking, I clung to the hope that our marriage had some love. Financial issues arose as James increasingly relied on me for money. Seeking advice from his mother only brought biased support, leaving me feeling lost. My friends dismissed my concerns, pointing out James's charming facade. James's unpredictable behavior, especially when drunk, pushed me to my limits. I struggled with whether to endure the situation or face a future alone. Just as I began to seriously consider divorce, James suggested living with his parents. I was stunned to learn he wanted them to move into our place. I understood the desire to be near aging parents, but they were in good health, making the idea confusing. I couldn't understand why James's parents needed to move in with us. Our home would be cramped with 5 people, and since I work from home, it would be very inconvenient. You're always thinking about yourself, huh? I never thought you were this selfish, James accused. I'm just questioning why they need to move here when they have their own place. Our home is more spacious, modern, and equipped with conveniences for elders. If James's parents move in, I'd have to be on my toes during work hours while James is rarely home. His retired parents would likely be around a lot, sharing the bathroom and kitchen. I'm slower than most people and foresee the challenges of such a living situation, I explained. I need some time to think, I said. You better hurry up. We don't have much time, James replied. Despite saying that by the weekend, he brought his parents over, making me think they had planned this move for a while. You know, I've been thinking, maybe you should consider a facility, James's mother suggested. What? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. A facility for me. Yeah, it's a good idea, right? You have your own limits, and in a facility, they take care of everything. It became clear that James wasn't just thinking about moving his parents in. He was also considering sending me away. I'd visit you from time to time, James added. That statement woke me up. If not now, then when, James? What am I to you? Your wife, right? Would you really tell your wife to go to a facility? Hold on, when did I say I love you, Linda? James's words made me furious. This guy was using me. Wasn't it my fault for letting it get to this point? I had to draw a line. Then James said something even more shocking. In this house, I'm going to live with my parents. You, an outsider, can go live in some cheap facility. What did you just say? I looked to his parents, hoping for support, but they just grinned eerily. Why are you laughing? What's the big deal? Were they targeting my home even before our marriage? Things were escalating too fast. I needed to get them out of my house. Please leave. Leave now? How can you talk to my parents like that? James yelled at me furiously. If he cared so much for his parents, why didn't he earn his own money and build them a house? Why did he have to take mine? My head felt like it was on fire. It's okay, James. Linda must have been shocked since we came unexpectedly, his mother said. We just came to check the place today. Yeah, we need to check before moving in. Looks like there are more appliances than last time. Seems comfy to live in, his parents said. They were genuinely here to take over my home. Trying to calm myself, I took a deep breath. A sudden question lingered in my mind. If I leave, how are they planning to sustain themselves? His parents rely on a pension, and James is just a part-timer. I'm covering all the rent and living expenses. Who's going to handle the $4,500 monthly payment? Do his parents think James is covering the living expenses? Ignoring my concerns, his parents cheerfully left, with James following them. I'm going to stay at my parents' tonight. Hold on, we need to talk. There's nothing to talk about. I, the man of the house, have decided. I won't change my mind. Left alone and shocked, I quickly contacted a real estate agent I knew. When James returned the next day, he saw the packed belongings and chuckled. Oh, started packing? Found a place already? Yes, I have, I replied. James seemed genuinely surprised by my swift response. And here's the card of a divorce lawyer. From now on, let's communicate through the lawyer and divorce. Why? If you're kicking me out, there's no point in being married anymore, right? James looked as if he had been hit by a ton of bricks. He hadn't expected me to mention divorce so quickly. You can't live without me, right? Who else would marry you? I can live on my own. But you said you wanted to get married, I replied. It was then that I realized how arrogant and overconfident James had been. He thought I was a lonely, disabled woman who would never leave. But I am independent, have money, and manage my life just fine. I do all the chores for him, and he thought I wouldn't leave because I couldn't find anyone else. That's why he was shocked when I brought up divorce. If you divorce me, you might be single for the rest of your life. Well, if it means living a married life with you, I'd rather be single forever. Whether I spend the rest of my life alone isn't for you to decide. The typically submissive me was now fighting back, and James was getting flustered. I could tell he was panicking. I never thought he was such a weak man. I don't know why I had been putting up with him for so long. Once I decided on the divorce, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I guess I was too focused on getting married anyway. You don't have to move out right away. I didn't mean to rush you into a facility so soon. Oh, it's fine. I'll do as you wish. Don't worry, you won't find a place that fast. Think it over, okay? I've already secured a place, so it's all right. Wait a minute, isn't this too soon? Watching James's attitude shift from smugness to panic only heightened my irritation. Calmly, I prepared for the next steps. I explained the facility staff knows about my situation, so everything's fine. Wait, when did you even set all this up? Were you preparing all along? James questioned. Yes, even before I met you. I had been thinking about my retirement and found a facility that's more like a condo. After an injury during my hospital stay, I got into investment books and diversified my investments with my salary and my parents' inheritance. I bought the condo I had my eye on and have been renting it out for income. I never mentioned this to you. It's my hidden asset. We don't need to get a divorce. I get it, you can stay here, and we can live with my parents. Do you not get it? Why would I ever do that? He seemed dense, even after I brought up divorce. He still believed he was the only one for me. Sorry, but my mind's made up. What's your problem? You're so selfish. If you come crying back later, it's not my problem. I won't be, so don't worry. James fell silent, deep in thought. During that time, I started packing my things. Then I heard James making a phone call, likely to his parents. It seemed pathetic, relying on them for such decisions. Eventually, James approached me. Fine, we'll get a divorce. Just leave quickly, James said begrudgingly, maybe realizing he might miss having me around as a housemaid. He probably thought that living with his parents would save him from household chores. He headed back to his parents' home. I'm going to talk to my folks about what's next. Get ready to move out quickly. Yes, I'll do that. I finished moving all my stuff within a week, and during that time, James never showed up. We met again the day after the move was done. As I was starting my new life in my new house, James called me outside. Hey, what's going on? This place is almost empty. Where are the appliances? I had a service pick up those items for me. I called the service the next day and had them collect all the furniture and appliances. James became agitated and started grumbling. Not only James but also his parents were there. All the appliances here were bought by me. They are all from when I was single. The only thing that's yours is right there. I pointed to 4 cardboard boxes. I did leave the clear clothing container we bought after marriage. Linda, we can't live like this. We need to split the property if we're divorcing, James said. That's right. We can't live here like this, James's mother added. What are you talking about? Nobody can live here. What do you mean? The rent's $5,000, I said. James and his parents were stunned. I told James when we got married that this isn't my own house. No, it isn't. I got a discount on the rent because I asked a real estate agent I know. If I move out, the rent will go up even more. This place has disability access, and I've already received several inquiries from people who need it. I recommend you move out. Why didn't you tell us sooner? What are we going to do now? James's mother was visibly upset. I don't know. I did tell James. I didn't hear about it. I'll sue you, James threatened. I saw that coming. From an outsider's perspective, it might look like I selfishly got a divorce, broke the lease, and took all the furniture and appliances, but I'm sure. You can sue, but do you even have the money for it? James's face twisted. He couldn't afford a lawyer. Even if he could, I had an ace up my sleeve. I showed them some pictures. When did you take these? The pictures showed James's gambling and with other women. I spent my money on this. I'm ready to use these in court, James. What the hell? I thought everything was going well. His parents were particularly upset. What's going on? James suddenly started to apologize. I'm sorry. Please come back. I need you, Linda. You're the one who kicked me out. We're already divorcing, so what are you talking about? Besides, you don't love me, do you? If that's the case, I'll just leave then, James said. This time, even his parents began to apologize alongside him. We don't have a place to live anymore, James's father said. What do you mean? I asked. Our house got foreclosed on. We've gone bankrupt. The debt his father accumulated grew too big to handle. James, who used to get an allowance from his parents when he was single, probably thought he was in trouble and decided to get married, hoping for support. Now I understand why his mother was so kind before we got married. I can't help you now. We're strangers, I said. Even if my folks and I end up homeless, are you okay with that? James asked. You brought it on yourself, didn't you? James's ulterior motive was clear as day. I firmly told him. I had no intention of giving him any furniture or electronics. Please don't say that. Have some mercy, James pleaded. It's too late for apologies now. Sort it out on your own, I replied. That's why I'm asking. I can't sort it out, James insisted. I told James and his father that if they couldn't pay the rent, they should move out. The lease was in my name, so I could cancel it any time, making eviction easy. Even if the lease was transferred, James probably couldn't afford to live there. I heard all this from the real estate agent. I can't pay the rent, James admitted. In the end, I decided to cancel the lease. I no longer needed the place, and with the divorce finalized, everything was over. I kicked out the stunned family and locked the door. What are we going to do now? James's father asked. I can move into a facility. Goodbye, I said. Facilities like that probably have no freedom and are the worst, right? Good luck in that crappy environment, James spat bitterly, clearly unsatisfied with not having the last word. I ignored him and his parents and left. A few days later, James showed up at the facility where I had moved. Hey, what's this about? James looked around, about to faint. It's not a crappy environment at all. It's a luxury facility worth $3 million. I had saved up money and, with my investment earnings, bought this place. The previous occupant left at the perfect time, so I moved in immediately. With the sale of my house and some extra income, I still have plenty left over. This facility is top-notch, with doctors and helpers on site. The floor plan is just like an apartment, with plenty of privacy. The room is a 2-bedroom, so families can live together. There are even couples and families living here. I can call a helper with the push of a button, and there's assisted bathing every day. I originally thought of this as my final residence, but I'm glad I made the move. You had this much money? Then why? I really don't want you coming all the way here. We're strangers now. Please leave. James suddenly started acting sweet towards me. Can't you just let me live here? What are you talking about? That's impossible. We're divorced. Face reality. That's why let's get remarried. I'm living in a motel now. Isn't that pitiful? I can't get a job because I cut him off. That's your problem, James. Goodbye. I don't have an address at the motel, James said, trying to sound smooth. It was clear he had quickly abandoned his own parents. He only thinks about himself. Why don't you take a look in the mirror? You look pathetic, living off your parents at your age, becoming a freeloader after marriage, and now begging on the streets, I said. James's face turned bright red. You're not ashamed to be clinging to your ex-wife? Look, everyone's watching, I pointed out. Residents peeking from their balconies were watching. I had asked them to look out if my ex-husband came to visit. I knew James would come looking for me at least once, either to gloat or to beg. The residents were very cooperative and looked at James with pity. It was like a real-life drama. I wanted to applaud them. James finally noticed the stares and realized how embarrassing he was being. I won't ask any more, he muttered and disappeared. I don't think he'll come here again. Later, when I went out, I ran into my mother-in-law working at a supermarket checkout. My father-in-law was a janitor, and my mother-in-law was a cashier. As soon as my mother-in-law saw me, she turned her face and tried to hide. She was being scolded by a young employee for her attitude. James had apparently found a low-paying job through someone he met at the motel cafe. I frequently host home parties and live happily every day with people from the same facility. I also became good friends with other wheelchair users. If I had known such a community existed, I would have moved here sooner. I found time to attend physical therapy sessions, and my current goal is to get my legs moving on my own. I lead a fulfilling life both at work and in private.